This is a brand new Wilier Cento10 Hybrid. It's the newest e-road bike from the Italian company, and at 10.8 kilograms, it's also one of the lightest you can currently buy. And it also looks very much like a normal road bike. You can barely see the battery in the down tube, the motor is hidden in the hub. They really look to narrow the gap between an e-road bike and a regular road bike. Now, a lot of purists might be wondering why a company with as much history and heritage and a focus on lightweight road racing bikes like Wilier has produced an e-road bike. But really, it's this embrace of technology and the latest innovation that's the reason Wilier has been around for well over 100 years. And e-road bikes are really just the next step in the evolution of the road bike. Now, I've got loads of questions about this bike, as I'm sure you probably have as well. So in this video, I'm going to sit down with Kevin from Wilier and chat about the bike and go through some of the key details on this new model. Well, Kevin, thank you for joining me to talk about this brand new and very splendid looking bike today. Before we get to the nuts and bolts of this bike, let's talk about Wilier getting into e-bikes and what that is all about.
Well, Wilier got into e-bikes a couple of years ago with the Cento10 Hybrid, which used the same system as this, the e-bike motion system, and that was incredibly successful, and it sold very, very well over on the continent and also in America. And this whole market is a rapidly sort of increasing sector in the UK right now. So what we wanted to do basically with the Cento10 Hybrid was to take all the good things about the Cento10 and then to add the benefits of an aerodynamic frame with fully integrated cables.
So how much does it share with the regular bike it's loosely based on? Is it more or less the same frame with the battery and the motor, or have you had to make quite a few adaptations?
It follows the Cento10 as closely as possible, because the Cento10 is a pro level aerodynamic, full road race bike.
Yeah.
And superficially you'll see that the frame is almost identical, but of course we had to make some design changes to incorporate the e-bike motion system. So the battery, although you hardly notice it, the battery's in the down tube, so the down tube is a slightly different section to the Cento10. And the geometry is slightly different as well, because the Cento10 is a full road race bike that the professional peloton uses. So with this, it's still a very responsive fast road bike, but at the front end it's got about 30 millimeters more stack than the Cento10, because we feel that the customer for this bike is going to appreciate a more relaxed ride.
And it's a very clean looking bike. You mentioned me, there's no cables outside at all, so getting the cables inside the frame and the handlebar is clearly very important with the bike.
It is. I mean, the idea was to keep all the aerodynamic advantages of the Cento10, and although you could say, well, what's aerodynamics got to do with an e-bike? Well, this is about 8% aerodynamically more efficient than the Cento10 e-bike that we have, and it's also lighter. It's about 7% lighter as well. And all of that, obviously, it makes life easier for the rider, but it also makes the battery last longer, which is always a really important factor on any e-bike.
So you mentioned range. We should talk about range, because that's something that I know a lot of viewers will be asking. What is the range? So what is the range of the new bike?
Well, range is such a difficult thing to quantify, because it's dependent on such a huge amount of factors. Things like the rider weight, the terrain you're on, what power setting we're using on the system, and just how much effort you're putting in and adding in as well. So there are no sort of standard ways of defining range at the moment, but what Wilier do is they take it in terms of meters of climbing.
Okay.
So this bike typically will climb on a ride out, will climb between 1,000 and 2,000 meters of vertical climbing, which, if you think about it, especially if you're out if you live somewhere like this around Bath, or if you're in the mountains, that's a pretty important factor.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a tough one to put a defined figure on.
But going by the amount of climbing you can do is an interesting way of doing it. Like 2,000 metres, that's a big day on the bike, isn't it?
Well, it is, and I think it's important to appreciate that. These are from the outset, they're designed to look and ride and feel as much as possible like a proper performance road bike. So all the e-bike motion system does is it enables you to stay out longer and to climb a bit more.
Okay. How's the weight of the battery and the motor? How does that affect the handling of the bike? 'Cause I know handling is a kind of key focus for Wilier.
It
for
is,
that
yeah.
kind of lightweight race bike and being responsive. How does that impact the handling?
Well, that was one of the factors that defined the choice of it's actually the Mahler e-bike motion system. Because there are other systems available, and in actual fact, Wilier use all these other systems on other bikes. They use Fazua and also the Shimano Step system on other bikes. But for a road bike, they felt that the e-bike motion system gave the best ride characteristics because the weight is nice and low down and at the back. And also, very important is that because it's all self-contained in the rear hub, you can use a complete group set, and you've got a totally standard crank with a normal Q factor as well. So the impact on the ride and the feel of the bike is as small as it can be. The only thing you notice is the increased weight. But even that, this bike is incredibly light for an e-bike, and a painted medium comes in around 10.5 kilos, which is incredibly light when you think about it.
Definitely one of the lightest e-road bikes you can currently buy, I think.
Yeah, well, when the it must be, because when the Cento10 Hybrid first came out, that was the lightest e-road bike on the market. So I'm not sure if it still is, because a lot's happened since then, but we were in pretty early. That was 2 years ago.
And I mean, Willier's history is all about producing lightweight road racing bikes. So I guess producing a lightweight e-road bike makes a lot of obvious sense, doesn't it? Try and get the weight as low as possible for the handling and then increasing the range. It
does. I mean, lightweight is something that certainly the professionals are always after, and I think consumers as well, because lightweight is never going to be a negative, that's for sure, because it's going to help your performance, but also just with handling and the feel of the bike, the lighter the better.
Okay. And on this bike, we got the motor in the hub at the back. We've got the battery somehow concealed in the down tube, which barely looks any bigger than a normal bike, and a control system on the handlebar.
Yeah, the control system on this is the X35 Plus, which is the latest control system from Mahler e-bike motion. And the big addition to that, what the Plus stands for, is it uses the ANT Plus communication protocol.
Okay.
So it'll interface with Garmin's and Polar and other GPSs. And it's the usual thing, there's an app you can download to access the full range of capabilities. And one of the more interesting ones that people like is that it'll interface with a heart rate monitor.
Okay.
And obviously you set limits and bands on that, and then it'll govern how much power it puts in. It'll align it to your heart rate at the time. So if you start to work harder, it'll put a little bit more power.
So it'll automatically select the right amount of power to match the effort you're putting into the bike.
Yeah. So you can have a really
That's
sort of.
cool.
Yeah, it is, and that's the kind of thing that all this integration with apps that allows you to do. But one thing we have done is the iWalk button is how you normally control the system when you're riding along. And it's deliberately very, very simple, so you don't have to devote a lot of ride time to looking at it. So it's basically a great big button that changes colour, so you can tell at a glance what mode you're in and what the battery's up to, and you can change the mode as you ride. But one of the differences between the Cento 10 and the Cento10 is we've moved the iWalk button from the top of the top tube, where it is on the Cento10, up onto a bracket on the handlebar.
Okay.
So it's actually positioned close to where you'd normally have your GPS or your power unit or whatever, and we just felt it was a little bit safer for people on the road. They don't have to look down quite as much, and they can keep looking forwards to more time.
And it also keeps the frame nice and clean. You've got no buttons on the frame anywhere, have you? So.
It does, yeah. That's the secondary benefit. Certainly aesthetically, it makes it, for a more conventional, cleaner looking frame.
So we mentioned weight a few times, and weights. How have you managed to keep the weight down? And is it all? How much restriction is there from the motor and the battery, and how much can you do as a bike manufacturer with the frame and the materials and the layup of the carbon to get the weight down as low as possible?
Well, that's the real art of making a high-end frame these days is the carbon layup, and frames are made out of a huge combination of grades of carbon fibre pre-preg, and also there are probably 200 or 300 pieces of carbon involved in the frame, and where you put them and how you lay them up to optimise for weight is where the real art of a modern carbon frame comes in. So basically what you're looking to do is to put the right grade of carbon in the right place and in the right wall thickness in the right section to give you the stiffness where you need it, but also you're always looking for compliance as well. to make a frame comfortable to ride. And that's something that Wilier have honed over the years. I mean, they've been making race bikes for a long time, and I think right from the days of the Cento Uno, which was probably their first carbon superbike back, that must have been 12 years ago now. One of that was built to win Tour de France stages. It was a full-on professional road bike. But one of the things that characterised it, and I think is something you can say about all the top-end Wilier carbon bikes since, is they have an element of comfort to them as well. Because even if you're riding a 3-week stage race, you still appreciate some comfort, although obviously performance is a hugely important factor. So it's something that Wilier are very good at. So to produce a bike like this, you have to put all those factors together. You're trying to reduce the amount of carbon you're putting in to keep the weight down, but you have to have enough stiffness, and you're always looking to make it as comfortable as possible. But it's where it's a real art these days.
Yeah. Which brings me neatly on to our next question: is who is the bike aimed at? Because you mentioned racing cyclists, where weight and performance are key, but you can't currently race this bike.
No.
But you might do in the future. I don't know what your views are on this bike being raced in the peloton in the future, but at the moment, 2019, who's the bike aimed at? Who is the customer for this new bike?
Well, the customer for a bike like this typically is certainly an enthusiast, because this is a top-end bike, and it is designed to, like I say, to ride and feel just like a top road race bike. But basically, it's someone that just wants to maybe stay out longer or attack more challenging terrain, and who hasn't necessarily got enough time to train to pro levels and that kind of thing, which most of us haven't. So it's basically an enthusiast cyclist who just wants a little bit of assistance and to put an edge on their performance, and maybe they want to ride with their younger friends and stay out longer, and also I guess to enjoy it more as well. So it doesn't have to be a slog the whole time. But that's the key to these bikes. It's just an assistance that just helps you to enjoy your bike a little bit more. Okay. I think that's the nub of it. And
do you see it replacing, for Wilier as a brand, do you see the road bikes sitting alongside your current bikes? Or do you see a future where probably e-road bikes? Or would it be a split? Or
it's hard to say, but right now it's absolutely alongside, where we're not going to stop. I mean,
not stop making normal bikes anytime soon.
Top end road bikes are in our DNA. I don't know what the future holds for I think there probably would be a split in the market, but it's hard to see a day when Wilier wouldn't be producing top end race bikes for the pro peloton.
But you see more e-road bikes in the future as well?
Absolutely. It's in the UK we're a little bit behind, but because obviously Wilier is a worldwide company, and in other markets it's taken off hugely. And the Cento Uno Hybrid, which we introduced about 2 years ago, was just an instant success, and we sold markets like France and Germany and America. We sold an awful lot of bikes, and I think that's what's going to happen in the UK.
So we had a question from one of our viewers on Instagram. What's the tyre clearance on this new bike?
On this, it's 28 millimeters.
Okay.
Which we feel is enough because it's a road race bike. It's not a gravel bike or anything like that.
Okay.
So 28 millimeters will give you a really comfortable ride with modern tubeless tyres.
And the next question we have from one of our viewers is, how much does the bike cost? And this bike's well spec with Dura-Race Di2, carbon wheels, very nice kit.
Yeah, we call this the Superlight version because it's got the tubular wheels, the full carbon tubular wheels. So this retails in the UK for £10,100, but we do some cheaper specs with down to Ultegra Di2. And that one has clinchers, so you can run that with tubeless wheels, and that works out at just over £7,000.
Okay. And it's available now in shops?
Just starting to come through. We launched it at Eurobike, and we're just getting stocks through now.
Okay.
So it's available to order.
There we go. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Well, a really interesting chat there with Kevin from Wilier. Loads of questions asked and answered about this new Cento10 Hybrid. Now, if you've got any more questions we didn't answer, do put them in the comment section down below. Always love to hear your opinions and thoughts on any of the bikes we're featuring here on the road.cc YouTube channel. Also, while you're down there, make sure you hit that like button if you enjoy watching the video, and also consider subscribing to our channel as well. We're producing loads of videos now, loads of bike reviews, so make sure you don't miss out by hitting that red subscribe button down below. But that's all for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all again next time.